You believe you began when the body appeared and others named you. You point to dates and documents and call them proof. Yet the certainty is thin when examined. Before the first memory, what were you? Ibn Arabi entered this doubt with precision. He asked whether you existed before birth, not as a story or a trace, but as a known reality within divine knowledge. If the real knew you before creation, then birth did not produce you. It disclosed you. The question becomes exact. What are you before description, before role, before the word I formed in thought? You watch the idea of yourself arise and pass. The watcher remains. Is this watcher the personal self, or is it awareness itself? You test your identity by observation. You notice that thoughts come without invitation. Choices appear, guided by causes you did not design. Attention shifts on its own. Even certainty needs constant reinforcement. When reinforcement stops, what remains? You stand not on memory, but on being aware. The I that claims ownership is late to the scene. It comments. It explains. It justifies. But it does not create awareness. Ibn Arabi would ask, if you must keep saying I, what are you defending? You try to find a border where your ownership begins. Each time you locate it, it moves. The doubt matures. Perhaps the one who seeks control is a function within awareness, not its source. If so, who is the seeker and what is being sought? Ibn Arabi lived in 12th century Andalusia, where philosophy, sacred law, and direct realization contested authority. He respected reason and practice, yet insisted that final insight belongs to recognition of existence itself. He described reality as one unfolding being knowing itself through many forms. Individuals are not separate origins, but expressions of divine knowledge appearing in time. Within this frame, before birth, does not mean a prior memory. It means your reality as it is known to the real, independent of appearance. To ask who you were is to ask what existence is. The inquiry shifts from biography to ontology. Your attention moves from events to the ground of events. Ibn Arabi taught that every existence has a fixed reality, an eternal meaning within divine knowledge. Before manifestation, you were already known by the real, not as a body or a narrative, but as a possibility grounded in being. Manifestation does not create you from nothing. It translates what is known into appearance. He distinguished between existence as knowledge and existence as disclosure. The first is timeless. The second is temporal. The first is without change. The second is process. You live inside the second and overlook the first. Yet the first is primary. If this is true, then who you were before birth is not a hidden memory, but a condition of being that your mind cannot picture. It can only recognize it. Can recognition happen without image, through direct awareness alone? Here tension arises. You want to preserve the private center that chooses and acts. You fear that accepting a prior impersonal ground might cancel freedom, effort, and meaning. Ibn Arabi addressed this fear by separating function from ownership. He did not deny agency. He recast it. Your actions still appear. Responsibility still operates. Yet ownership of awareness is questioned. The doer is real as a form in time. The owner of being is not a person. You can test this without losing integrity. You can fulfill obligations while knowing that awareness itself does not belong to you. The conflict softens when you see that renouncing false ownership does not erase conduct. It clarifies it. If the self is a channel rather than the source, does action become more precise or less? Does humility weaken action or refine it? You examine the link between constancy and identity. Thoughts change, feelings change, roles change. Awareness does not. Identity based on change is unstable. Identity based on awareness is simple. Ibn Arabi implied that this awareness is not personal. It is the real perceiving through your form. This is not a collapse of individuality, but a correction of attribution. You stop asking how a private self can secure permanence. You ask how permanence carries the private self for a time. The movement is subtle, from possession to participation. You participate in being. You do not contain it. The earlier question adjusts. Before you were born, you were not a character waiting off stage. You were a known meaning within being. Can a meaning exist without image and still be real? A realization occurs when you notice that the question, "Who was I before birth?" depends on time. Time cannot measure what has no beginning. You see that you were asking for an object, a soul with features, a pre-life profile, a stored identity. But the teaching aims elsewhere. It points to what cannot be stored because it never becomes an item. It is the simple fact of being. Ibn Arabi's language directs you to this fact through negation and precision. Not this thought, not that memory, not this role. What remains is awareness, present without origin. Birth marks the arrival of form, not the origin of being. If there is no point at which awareness begins, then your question dissolves at the root. Are you ready to release a question that cannot touch its object? Clarity does not arrive as a spectacle. It arrives as the absence of need for an image. You sit in understanding that cannot be narrated as a story. You do not add beliefs. You remove confusion. Ibn Arabi called this a station without station, a recognition not bound by place or rank. You see that awareness is the constant ground, and the personal self is a functional pattern within it. Nothing dramatic occurs. Conduct continues. Language continues. Yet the reference point has changed. Instead of guarding a border that cannot be found, you dwell on a fact that cannot be denied. What then is devotion? What then is prayer? Is it asking for presence or living from it? Integration is ordinary. You keep your commitments. You fulfill roles. You practice remembrance, not as repetition, but as correction of reference. When anxiety rises, you ask, who is anxious awareness or a temporary configuration within it? When pride rises, you ask, who claims ownership of being? When despair rises, you ask, what has truly changed in the ground of awareness? Ibn Arabi's insight becomes practical by guiding attention back to the stable fact. This does not dismiss effort. It directs it. Effort moved from defending identity to clarifying perception. The result is sobriety, not indifference. You act with care because action is a trust. If being is primary, does vigilance deepen? Does compassion become precise rather than sentimental? Return to the opening question. You asked who you were before you were born. You looked for a picture, a record, a prior narrative. The search failed because it aimed at what awareness cannot hold as an object. Ibn Arabi's guidance closes the circle. Before birth, you were a known meaning in divine knowledge, and in living, that meaning is disclosed. You are not separate from being. You are its appearance in this moment. The question rests, not because it was answered with detail, but because it was exceeded by recognition. What you are is the awareness that notices all change and is not itself a change. Let this be enough. You did not begin. You appear. Being remains.